First of all, we understand there are two ways usually that when they try to get a brand popular. One is to acquire the products that is already popular and also make sure the brands will be changed to something that you want it to be. And secondly is to have your own creating a brand and made it internationally known. Ms. Wang, you know probably this better than most of us. What approach do you think China is taking right now?
I think both approaches can be very effective, and both approaches have many successful cases. For the acquisition side, we are seeing from Lenovo's acquisition with IBM and to the most recent Tencent's investment on Snapchat. Acquisition, Chinese companies usually do very well at the PR during acquisition. And then they go completely silent. And actually post-acquisition is a critical time for them to build strong brands. How to ensure these two brands can grow healthy and sustainably, and how can the two brands support each other in the future growth? And of course, organic growth. We're also seeing many successful cases from TCL Haier to Hisense. Hisense is already #4 largest TV manufacturer worldwide and achieved $800 million sales in the US. But only started globalization 6 years ago. So two approaches, both have successful cases, but a couple of questions we need to ask ourselves is,
well, we're going to ask those questions a little bit later. Well, let's go to Professor Wei. What do you think about these two choices? It seems that people say things seem to happen, at least to in certain extent, in the sequel. At the very beginning, you know, on the IBM cases, Lenovo cases, it's more about acquiring another product and they make it your own. But more and more Chinese enterprise these days are trying to promote its own brands, even though when going international, they might acquire some other brands just to make it a shortcut. What do you think about this sequel? Is it really happening that way?
Hi, hello from Hong Kong, and thanks for having me here. Well, my view is that, well, acquiring brand, maybe it's effective and a fast way, you know, to promote your own brand name. But it often, you know, still needs a lot of work afterwards, especially, you know, usually if you can buy a brand, that means the brand name maybe is not in a good position. So you have to invest a lot in the acquiring company to, you know, to get it up again. And also, sometimes, like Nova's case, you have to change the name, even though everybody knows that the laptop you produce is originally from IBM, but you still have to change a name. So that will cost some money to do so. So the best way, I think, is still to promote your own brand name and sell your own product.
Right. Do you see much difficulty, though, Mr. Bastin, from your perspective, that Chinese are aggressively promoting their own brands rather than as Lenovo did many years ago, we say already many years past, about IBM's computer or laptop? Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't say difficulties. I think there are real opportunities here, and I agree with the professor based in Hong Kong that we certainly need to see Chinese companies taking more confidence and more commitment in building their own brands, because in the long term, obviously, you have more control. And I would single out Huawei as being very successful in that manner. I think one of the challenges with that Chinese companies have is they're very inexperienced in emotional brand building and attaching these emotional associations. They've become very, very successful technologically with the latest technology, obviously Xiaomi, Lenovo, Alibaba, but building that emotional brand, you know, that Apple has done very successfully over Samsung, for example, is the next big hurdle for Chinese companies. And I do see that changing as well. And I think Huawei, with their tie-up with Arsenal Football Club, for example, are very much pursuing that path. So I think emotional brand building is the way forward for them.
And therefore, let me go back to Ms. Wang, because I know you have a lot to say, Ms. Wang, in that regard earlier. That is, what do you think the Chinese companies should have? A change of strategy or a change of technique, just in order to get closer and being embraced by the international markets when it comes to brands?
when it comes to brand, it needs this sustainable and persistent brand development strategy. And brand is not built overnight, and image change and awareness change won't happen overnight. Milward Brown's Going Global study shows that only 6% of consumers in the United States can name at least one brand. That awareness level is alarmingly low. So for Chinese brand, it is a long way to go, but brand building need long-term brand strategy and need support and investment behind the brand. You cannot put money in and then draw it back in the next year. You need sustainable and persistent strategy.
One of the interesting things is, Professor Wei, whether the achievements one brand has in China in terms of appealing to the audience in this country will be able to carry over to the other countries when they try to promote its brand internationally. In the case of Apple, for example, in the case of Samsung, we see that carryover phenomenon from another culture to the Chinese market. But many wonder, will that also work for the Chinese brand, which I think is a very interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, it's obviously quite difficult for the Chinese companies to build up their brand name, because for the long time, made in China is equivalent to low price, low quality. So we have to first of all change this image, and this requires a lot of work for the Chinese firms. So to start with, they have to change their strategies. Instead of pursuing just quantity and being large, and they have to pursue quality and make their products well known by the Western customers for being good quality products instead of just low price products. So that's different from a lot of Apple companies, because the people know that American products are pretty good already, so it's easy for Apple to develop, but not so easy for a lot of Chinese firms. So that takes a lot of effort, and also probably has to do with some sort of soft power cultural change as well.
The soft power side, of course, is not just the job of Chinese enterprises, because this is an overall power image of a country. Well, they can contribute to it, but they are not necessarily to make the final decision. But on the other hand, Mr. Bastin, we want to know about this, because you see that the Chinese products are competitive. Even the Chinese brands are competitive these days internationally. It's not because necessarily in most cases they are the top of the qualities. It's only because when it comes to the price and quality match, they are the most appropriate and the most competitive. So when Professor Wei talk about they have to improve their quality, yes, that's always sure, that's always true. But then to what extent should they devote much to the quality improvement? To what extent should they work on this competitive edge, which is the combination of both price and quality?
Well, it's a combination of both, and you're right. You do see even the most successful Chinese brands internationally slightly lower price than their competitors. So they need to build on their quality, but it's quality here that's not just functional, rational quality. They've been very, very successful with, again, latest technology and durability and reliability, Xiaomi, Alibaba, Lenovo, for example. Where they need to improve their quality and their competitive edge is that intangible emotional association, and build, for example, build from a quality association to one of sophistication, one of style. That's what will allow them to raise their price as well. And what I think we'll see in the future, in the near future, is Chinese companies using the rich array of Chinese history and Chinese culture to build their brands emotionally overseas. That's what I've been calling for a long time, and I think many Chinese brands will start to use that more and more. That is a huge natural advantage that other companies and other countries don't have, that Chinese brands can attach that association, and that will resonate very, very highly with the global public, which reveres Chinese history and Chinese culture.